Hey everybody, welcome to a brand new In the Shop, and I've got a great one, a great timely one for you today. And we're going to be talking about one of my favorite ways to catch fish during the fall. The fall period. And we're in that right now in most of the country. We're in the fall period. And fall fishing is real simple to know you're kicking into fall, right? The leaves are changing, the air temperature is getting cool, the days are shorter, but most of all, your water temperature is really starting to cool off. When you look down at your temperature gauge, no matter where you live, if your water temperature is 5, 10, 15 degrees cooler than it was in July and August, you're in that fall period. If you've listened to some of the other In the Shops, you know how important this one word is during the fall when you're bass fishing, and that word is bait. Bait fish, forage. It's the most important thing in the fall is locating bait, the presence of forage. Because those bass are smart, man. They're feeding up. They're targeting forage to feed up before the winter comes. Even if you're in Texas and Florida and California and you don't get a real winter, those fish still know the coldest period of the month of the year is coming, right? It's all relative. So they still are feeding in this fall period. So there's so many baits that work good in the fall. Bait fish imitators, flukes, and jerk baits and spinner baits. They're all great. Shallow running crankbaits. But one of my favorite and probably one of the most effective baits in the fall of all time is topwater. Topwater! It's effective, it imitates bait, you cover tons of water, and the bites are explosive. And a lot of different topwaters work, but in today's In the Shop, I'm here to tell you about my two favorite topwaters in the fall. And we're going to go over each one and even give you some modifications for these baits, okay? And here are my favorite two. In my left hand, a Buzzbait, specifically a smaller profile Buzzbait. And then in my right hand, my favorite fall topwater bait. Listen to that sound. Whew. A walking bait, a stick bait, right? A walk the dog style lure. Once again, a smaller profile really fits the bill in the fall. So without a doubt, my two favorite topwaters in the fall, a small buzzbait, smaller profile buzzbait, and a small walking bait, stick bait, smaller profile walking stick bait. General rule of thumb is when I'm in heavy cover conditions, if I'm fishing over a lot of cover, let's call it grass, vegetation, wood, bushes, standing timber, around docks where there's ropes and cables, I prefer the buzzbait, right? Because it's snagless, it's weedless. But if I'm in more open water or around sparse cover, like an isolated target, a single stump, a rock, right? Like targets, but with open water, I prefer the walking bait, okay? But I want to talk to you about each one, and I'm going to show you some great modifications that I make in the fall that are going to help you get more bites and put more fish in the boat. Let's start with the Buzzbait, because this is one of my favorites. This is a Buzzbait by Molix, and it's called a Lover Buzz SS Junior, okay? So this is the small one. I'm going to take it out of the pack and really let you get your eyes on it. When you look at this Buzzbait, it's pretty small. It weighs 1/4 of an ounce, but it actually has the profile of about an 1/8 ounce Buzzbait. It's got, listen to this, ready? Hear that? A super squeaky blade on there, which is sound is so important with this Buzzbait. And it also has an inline design. When you look at most buzzbaits, they're what I call safety pin design, right? A top arm, a bend, a lower arm, but this one's in line. Just has one wire with just a little drop down, right? And an inline buzzbait is gonna plane better and stay on the top better. So that's why I like this style. So, but whatever you do, a smaller buzzbait, an 1/8 ounce, a 1/4 ounce, no bigger than a 3/8, and you want that smaller, more compact profile. 100%, you could take that Lover Buzz SS Junior out of the pack, fish it like that, and you could catch fish. Absolutely. But I have a couple modifications I want to show you that's going to make this a better buzzbait in the fall. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do, because the skirt is hand-tied on these Molix buzzbaits, we're going to get rid of the skirt. I want to remove that skirt. You could either just rip it off, just get your fingers and tear that off, or if that doesn't work, you can get your scissors and you can cut that skirt material away. So when you look at it now, I've got small profile buzzbait with no skirt. Next thing I want to add is I want to add a plastic to this. And that plastic is going to give it more of a shad or a baitfish profile. And it's also going to give it a little extra weight. It's going to make it a little more streamlined, and you're going to be able to cast it further by removing the skirt, right? Think about that skirt. That skirt was like a parachute, right? It's fluffy. It catches air. But when I remove that and add a plastic bait, it's heavier, it's more streamlined, you're going to get way longer cast. So the next thing I want to do is add a plastic to this. You could honestly add anything you want. A small crawl, a small creature. But I want to show you two of my favorites. One is just a simple tube. And I'll take a tube jig. This is just a Berkley power tube. It's a 3.5 inch power tube. And I'll thread it on there. Before I push it all the way up there, I add a little bit of glue to it to help keep that bait on there. And this is by Spike It. It's called Fix-A-Lure. The great thing about this little super glue is it's got a brush. And I'll just brush some of that glue on there. There you go. And then I'll pull my tube up on the body. And look at that shad profile. That's a great one. So a small tube, or my second favorite, and this one has amazing action in the water, right? So besides just that blade sound, now you're going to have movement in the water. You ready for this? Can't get more old school than that right there. This is just a grub. And I'll take a 3 or a 4 or a 5 inch grub. This is a Berkley Power Grub. And I'll thread that on the back. This is the 5 inch. Actually, I usually like the 4 or the 3. I'll bite a little bit of it down. Same thing. I'm going to get my Spike It glue, put a little glue on there. And I want to thread that curl tail grub on there so that the curl in the grub, see that bend in the grub? It's facing the opposite way of the hook, right? So look, the curl is up, the hook is down. I thread it on there. Molix has a little keeper anyway on there, so it looks good. But look at that bait fish profile that provides. Again, it's going to be easier to cast. The grub is a little extra action as it kicks in the water, and it's really snagless, it's really weedless. One other modification that I'm going to make to this little small profile buzzbait, and I want you to think about the importance of this in the fall when they're eating up. They're eating ferociously sometimes, and they slap at it a lot. They headbutt it, they thrash at it. So not 8 times out of 10, not 9 times out of 10, but every time, 10 times out of 10, every time I fish this small buzzbait in the fall, I take the skirt off, I put a plastic bait on, and I add a trailer hook. Have to do this in the fall. This is a small one. This is a number 1 VMC trailer hook. I just put it right over the top of your main hook, right? Fits over real nice. And then just get a little piece of surgical tubing or a little piece of plastic, and this is just a little rubber stop that I get from Tackle Warehouse, and just put that over the main hook, and that helps to keep that hook from sliding up and back over, okay? That trailer hook in the fall is so important. It's still snagless, it's still weedless, and again, in the fall, when I'm fishing around heavier cover, grass, bushes, docks with ropes and cables and snags, man, nothing beats that little profile buzzbait. So, top water in the fall, snaggy conditions, small buzzbait. But now I want to get to when I'm around more open water. You know, open water to sparse cover. I'm going down a flat point, halfway back in a pocket, it's got bait in it, and there's just gravel on the point. Or there's one stump or one stick up, right? I prefer a walking bait. And this is one of my favorites. Again, the size is important because in the fall, there is a ton of smaller forage in the water. Think about that, right? You have all that spawn, that young of the year forage that is now 2 or 3 or 4 inches. There's tons of that in the water. And that's what the fish are gobbling up in that fall feed period. This is the size 10, and this is a Rapala Skitter V stick bait. There's a lot of them out there by different companies, but this Rapala, take a look real quick at the belly of that bait. And they call it a Skitter V because the belly is keel-shaped, right? It looks like a V. And think about a boat. Think about a sailboat. A keel design tracks better in the water. So the nice thing about this little Skitter V is it really walks really easy. You don't need a lot of skill to walk this bait. The other thing I love about it, it's got a single ball in the back that helps you with casting distance, but it also helps attract the fish. Hear that single knock? There is something about that the fish can't stand. Okay, so here's your stick bait. You know, my rule of thumb on color real quick before I get to my other modification is that if the water's clean and clear in the fall, right? Clear water, clean water, the sky's bright, I want something with a translucent belly. When I'm fishing a topwater, all I really care about is how it looks when I'm looking up at it, right? So get that topwater and put it above you. Translucent belly, like that, for when it's clean water, bright, sunny conditions. When it's cloudy, when it's dark conditions, it's rainy, it's cloudy, or if that water's dirty, I want a solid belly. Solid white or solid pearl belly. Again, look, hold it up. That one I can't see through. That one's pure white, right? Good little rule about color, matching bait fish. And absolutely, just like the buzzbait, listen, I just took that little size 10 Skitter V out of the pack. I can fish it just like that, and I catch a lot of fish. But I'm gonna give you 2 modifications to make this walking bait in the fall a little better and help you catch more fish, okay? The first one is the hooks. And it comes, if you look, it comes with 2 number 4s. It's a perfect size for the size 10. But on that tail hook, I want to add a feather. I love a feather in the fall. And VMC makes some great replacement trebles that have feathers. This is an X-Wrap tail. They make some other great ones. And I'm going to take this back hook off, spin it off, and I always want to replace it with a feathered version, okay? A number 4, same size as on there, or 1 size bigger. You can get away with a number 3. That even will bring the tail down a little bit if you go to a slightly bigger hook. So a 4 or a 3 feathered treble on the tail. One of the reasons I do this a lot is not just to give it more strike appeal, but sometimes the bass are feeding on real little forage. Dude, I mean forage that is like an inch or 2 long. I can take this stick bait and stop it And when I pause it, that feather hanging down looks like a little tiny dead piece of forage or little dead shad. And a lot of fish will strike at that feather and ignore the other part of the bait. So feathered treble, 100% of the time in the fall, it's going to get you more bites. Last little tip on this walking stick bait, on this hard walking bait, is making this a bait that walks easier and stays nose up, right? Think about this. When you're walking it, it walks at its best when the bait is nose up. If it starts to pull down, if as you twitch it, your line tie slips down, right? Your line tie gets caught way up under here. It wants to pull it down and almost go underwater. You don't want that. You want it nose up. It's easier to walk, and that's a better sitting position, especially with that treble, right? So how can we take that and make sure and make it so that your line never goes too far down? You ready for this modification? Add knots to the eye of that bait. It's such an easy little modification. I want you on purpose, not by accident, on purpose, to leave 2 or 3 or even 4 knots on that bait. This is one I've thrown before, so I cut them off, and once I get to 3 or 4, I leave them on there. But even if it's brand new out of the box, just get some old line laying around and tie 2 or 3 or 4 knots. Make them real tight. And you see how those knots stay down? Well, now when I tie my line on there, my active knot will not go down on the eye. It'll stay from the midsection or up. And that's what we want, right? We don't want it going nose down, chin down. We want it up. Walks easier, stays nose up, tail down. So just leave your knots on there. Fish don't mind. It doesn't hook any weeds. It's a neat little modification to help you get better action on that bait. Man, I hope you like this one. Listen, there's no better fishing in the fall than when you can bust them on topwater. You're fishing around cover, heavy cover situations, grass, docks, rocks, wood. Throw that little buzzbait. Put a plastic trailer and a trailer hook on it. If you're fishing in open water or sparse cover, isolated cover, try a walking bait, a small walking bait like a Skitter V. Put a feather on the tail, put some knots on the eye. It's going to walk like a champ. Man, I hope you enjoyed this one. If you like what you're hearing, do me a favor. Don't click away yet. Hit that subscribe button. If you become a subscriber to my channel, a new piece of content, educational content for you every single week. If you're already subscribed to Mike Iaconelli Fishing, do me a favor. Tell your friends about my channel. We're going to teach them some great little techniques and tips on how to catch more fish. Topwater in the fall? Doesn't get any better than that. Bye.